With the first pick in the 2025 NBA Draft, the Dallas Mavericks select Cooper Flagg from Duke University.
It wasn't exactly an eye-popping moment in the draft when Cooper Flagg went number one. I'm not saying that it's not incredible what he did, especially given his age. Believe me when I tell you it's absolutely an incredible feat. I'm just saying in terms of predictability and what the majority of people thought was going to happen the minute that the Dallas Mavericks landed the golden ticket. I've got a golden ticket, right? The minute they got that, I think it was a foregone conclusion because obviously you've got to make the fans happy after they were ticked that you let go of Luka. Which, to be honest with you, if I'm going to keep it a buck, I've said 100 times over that I don't think a Luka-led basketball team will win you a championship. I don't have a problem with trading Luka, but if I'm a Dallas fan, I dang sure have a problem with trading for AD. That would have been my issue going after the brow. I'd have been like, word? And I wouldn't have liked the jabs either. The insults and, the out of shape and all that stuff. I don't think I'd have liked that either. If I'm a Dallas fan, I don't have a problem with him trading, but I have a problem with what he traded for, and I have an issue with what he said about Luka. Like, Luka loves us. What do you... But it is what it is. It's all said and done. Here you go. You got your number one pick. You got Cooper Flagg, the number one projected talent in the entire NBA draft, which, by the way, 3 players from that Duke squad end up going in the top 10. And, of course, Phoenix, I don't feel like wasted their pick. I think they made a very good pick with Common. I will say this. To me, he's a slightly more athletic Dikembe Mutombo, but a less athletic Dominique Wilkins, if that makes sense. You probably have to be my age to get it. It is what it is. It's not exactly not a compliment. Let's put it that way. I think what he gives you down low is impressive. And for me, Phoenix, when they traded Kevin Durant and they went with this pick, what they decided to me was, look, we're going to rely on Booker almost exclusively on offense right now, and we're going to try and put a really solid defense around him. That's, to me, what I'm looking at, especially when you go and you get Mark Williams, which, the only thing that I can assess at that moment is, okay, we're trying to get depth now at this position, and we don't want it to change too much between what ball players generally do, what their skills are, how we're going to use them, et cetera, what our rotation is going to look like in terms of everything else. When we rotate, we want it to be a similar squad out there all day, every day, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. I was just kind of taken back. I think to myself, you've got another pick in the first round. Maybe you go out and you get a little bit of offense, but it looks to me like Phoenix is going defense, which it is what it is. Speaking of trades, here's Pat Bev talking about the SGA trade back in, here.
Looking at that trade now. Who won? Would you rather have kept Shea and those picks for Paul George?
Definitely. It's not any type of personal shot at Paul George, but you...
Look, here's the thing, and I'm going to say this. I think SGA needed to go somewhere where he could really, truly spread his wings and become who he is. I think that needed to be done. And I don't think that it's fair to say SGA would have been this if he would have stayed with the Clips. I think what happens is when we get into these situations and we see these types of things happen, it's an easy go-to to start second guessing, which nobody did at the time. If there were people that were second guessing, they were few and far in between. Because let's not forget, there was a moment in time when PG-13 was the guy. You traded for him, that meant you were serious about taking the next step with your team. And so when that happened, I think a lot of people felt like, okay, this is a really good squad that can last a long time. They're going to have a huge future in front of them. Things don't work out, and none of us can ever predict anything 100%. It is what it is. What I am simply stating is that we didn't know it. And maybe at the end of the day, it was the best thing for SGA, the ball player, because I don't know that SGA, the ball player, becomes who we're watching right now. I mean, come on, man. If anybody saw the tail end of that speech that he gave, that was absolutely phenomenal. Matter of fact, here it is right here.
When they mention Clay Bennett, when they mention Sam Presti, when they mention Rock Wagner, and every single one of you in this arena, they gotta mention you as NBA champ.
If that doesn't give you chills, if that doesn't make you want to run through a brick wall, if it's obvious, it's really obvious right now. Watching that clip, it is obvious why those guys play for him. And while even though they were young, they had an actual leader. SGA was willing to take charge. He was willing to put in the work. He was willing to be patient. And that's also a credit to the organization. It's a credit to Oklahoma City to do the same thing. They came together and they said, let's stick with it and we will get where each one of us want to go. And I think that had he had been in another situation, and we all know, come on, let's be honest, the Clips, I mean, isn't it a thing like that's where players' careers go to just terminate? It just wouldn't have worked. I love Kawhi Leonard. I think when he's healthy, he's one of the best top 3 basketball players in the NBA. A lot of times, the best player in the NBA. A lot of people won't agree with me, and that's fine. But what I'm telling you is that's the way that I view it. But do you really think that Kawhi times SGA would have really worked out long term? It's 2 guys that are the same way on the court. Take control. And how much of that can you really have on one basketball team? That's the question that you have to ask yourself. All right, this situation here has just been bizarre. Take a look at this clip from Liver King.
More than anything and everything. Because Joe Rogan, we don't have to make videos to pretend anymore. All of this is happening. We're coming to you. I've challenged you man to man to a fight. Honorable.
Now, where do you even begin? Okay, because here's the thing. If anybody has followed this guy since the beginning of what he's done, it's been very difficult to know whether or not this is an act that he's putting on, if this is real life, if it's a character gone wrong that went rogue, whatever it is. Anybody will look at this and they will be confused, because if they followed him at any capacity whatsoever, whether as a fan or just kind of watching it, they will tell you, I don't know if this is him being him or if he actually means this. Now, the scenario is that somebody had got in touch with Joe Rogan's camp over this video, and they said, look, man, you need to take a look at this. And they discovered that, in fact, Liver King was on his way to Austin where Joe Rogan lives. Liver King happens to also reside in Texas, from what I've read. The long and the short of it is Joe Rogan was contacted by PD, and they were like, hey, do you know this guy or not? Rogan said, no, I've never had any contact with him. Liver King has allegedly tried to get on Joe Rogan's show several different times. Rogan has denied him being on there, and they said, okay, fine, we've got this video, we've got evidence, we're going to go ahead and arrest him. So they cleared a warrant, they went, and they picked him up while he was at a hotel, and as of right now, it is a misdemeanor, Class B misdemeanor, which, by the way, the most jail time that he would get out of it is 180 days, basically 6 months, and then a fine, I think it was like $5,000. So if anything, if like it hits really hard, essentially what we're probably looking at is probation, or maybe even, what do they call that, diversion, where you complete a series of things that get done and then it gets wiped off of your record, so it's basically like it never happened. The whole thing is bizarre. And if you go to Liver King's page Watching that made me feel a little crazy, I'm telling you. I felt like I was kind of losing my mind. Like, am I okay? Am I good? Like, I had to literally turn it off. He's got this blue stuff all over his mouth, and who knows if it's something that he's actually ingested or if he's just doing it for effect, like he's, sucking on candy or something to give himself that effect. It's weird because he's videoing himself. Like, what I want everybody to do is go ahead, we're going to take this path, and then he closes the door, and it's like that went on with clearance. Like, this got approved. I want you to film me from this angle back here saying this, doing this, and then doing that, and then we're going to post it. It's really difficult to tell whether or not it's a little too convenient. The main part of this is, obviously, though, is in one of the videos, he claimed that there were no serial numbers on some of the weaponry that he had, and so it was untraceable, and he said, well, that's how we do it in the state of Texas. Well, at that point, you're incriminating yourself, which, by the way, looking at that evidence, they could potentially bring up a separate charge, so who knows? Look, I'm going to let you guys decide. You just do with the information what you will. This whole thing is a little nutty. Joe Rogan, to this point, as the moment of this broadcast, whether it's been on Twitter or Instagram or anything else, I haven't seen him comment on it. It's probably the best thing to do at this point, if I'm being honest with you, is him not comment on it. So it is what it is. It's really bananas. It's really out there. I don't want to say that it's been overblown given the actual charge that's happened with this, but I will say that anytime a threat like that is made, you probably don't want to take it lightly. And I'm just going to leave it at that. So the Sun Belt may be losing a team in Texas State who's looking to get added by the Pac-12. The Pac-12 has reached out to Sun Belt and let them know that we are talking to your football team, Texas State, which, by the way, they've only been D1 since 2012. Their record since then is 56 and 102, 112. Either way, it's been really bad. Now, over the last couple of years, they've showed a little bit of promise. I think this season they finished 8-5. They got a bowl win. All right. Supposedly, they turned down a slot in the Mountain West, which, as you know, Boise State is going from the Mountain West to the PAC, which the PAC finally, I guess, got desperate enough to go ahead and have Boise State when they could have done it years ago, and it'd been good for everybody. And I think maybe they might not have disbanded, but it is what it is. It's hard to look back and say woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? We don't know, because Boise State might have said, no, we want the money too, and left to the Big Ten. So who knows what would have happened, but regardless, as of the moment right now, these are the teams that the Pac-12 has. You got Oregon State, Washington State, Boise, San Diego State, Colorado State, Utah State, Fresno State, and then you added Gonzaga for just basketball because they don't have football. And by the way, really quick here, the combined record of all the teams that they've got for football coming up into the 2026 season this year, they were 54-48, with obviously Boise State carrying the load. But they got outed in the first round of the playoffs. So Ashton Genty was held down, terrible play calling all the way around. Quarterback didn't play up to snuff. I could talk about a million and one things, but regardless, the point is, this is where the PAC is at right now. And as much as I root for the little guy, as of the moment, this isn't a good look. And when you're in a conference and you want to be a power conference, the one thing that you are going to have is a team that everybody, every single year, looks at and they go, they're probably going to be good because they're just going to reload. Now, in the day and age, obviously, the transfer portal, that is going to be so much tougher, which I, for one, appreciate. I don't like the idea of an Alabama winning 90 consecutive national championships. It's egregious. But at some point, you got to have that. You got to have that one team that has a namesake of, I want to go there just because of that name, which I hate to admit to, because nobody hates big brand football more than I do, especially in college athletics, because it's such a pony show with all the voting that goes on. it is what it is, but you're going to have that. You're going to have a flagship team that's going to get you the money with either a playoff win, a big bowl win, whatever it is, to get some trickle-down economics happening. Can Boise State be that team? I don't know, man. And it's really hard to predict the future. 2 years from now, a year from now, what's it going to look like next season? Who knows? But, man, as of the moment, the teams that they're getting over there, it's a real struggle for the PAC right now. And trying to put together this schedule and everything that they're doing last minute. And here's the thing, to be solidified, you got to have at least 8 teams. And the NCAA was very gracious and gave them plenty of time to get at least 8 teams. And right now, you got to get what you got to get, because the chances of being able to pull anybody back away from the Big Ten is minimal. Now, I will say this. Here's what I don't like the most about it. Things change. Everything changes. A part of me does miss demographic football in terms of location. All the teams from California playing each other and all those West Coast teams playing each other. And, you got the rivals out there, and a lot of those rivals have been put to bed. Athletics change. It is what it is. Simultaneously, it is good in some capacity, because now you're going to travel. You're going to play some of these teams. You're going to find out how good you really are. It's not on a neutral field. You're going to play somebody wherever they are, and time zone change. Look, when you're getting paid, you're going to be expected to do more things. So you're going to have to put up with more stuff. So what's my bottom line? Right now, this is real shaky for the PAC. And I don't know that they're going to be able to survive this. Boise State is probably going to have to be the team to really step up. Maybe Colorado State. If they win some games, they might give you some firepower. But even then, how likable is their head football coach, man? I mean, Norvell, with that whole thing with Dion, we'll see. Gonzaga for basketball obviously can really give you a lot of help. Boise State for basketball can throw in some help as well. So you schedule some tough teams, you beat them or you play them close at home, you're probably going to be able to do it. I would recommend you don't play any neutral site games. You either beat them in their own backyard or you beat them at home. You don't do a neutral site, and that's how you're going to get your weight up. I'll tell you that right now. Finally, the NFL, some alleged collusion going on. Look, here's the thing. All these, it doesn't matter if it's Yahoo, whoever. ESPN was the only one that said the NFL found not guilty of collusion. Everybody else is like, oh, the NFL's colluding. Read this headline. The NFL's colluding. Okay, so here's what's happening. A lot of journalists are deciding you got caught, you just got away with it. That's essentially what a lot of these pundits are telling you. The long and the short of it is, because you got to cut through a lot of red tape on this, is even though there is written proof from the LA Chargers owner Spanos to the Arizona owner Bidwell, where he tells him thank you for the deal that you got done. The rest, and everybody's going to love this, and Bidwell reportedly, yeah, wait till everybody else sees this. They're all going to love it. To Christopher Droney, who was the arbiter in this particular case, to him, that wasn't enough. And per the original collective bargaining agreement, you have to have a lot of evidence. Basically, almost a written contract of, yes, we have a contract between all 32 teams that we're going to collude. And by the way, he didn't necessarily find the 32 teams guilty of collusion, but what he did find to be true was that, and get this, the NFL counsel, which is a legal law firm, which Forbes called the most powerful law firm in sports that you've never heard of, did in fact approach all 32 teams and go, look, you should minimize these guarantees, which, by the way, all of this started when Deshaun Watson got that big contract from Cleveland. And he said, you probably don't want to do this anymore. Pass the word around. But then the arbiter said, there's no evidence that the 32 teams did this. There's only evidence that the NFL Management Council did this. So basically what they did was put a whisper in somebody else's ear. But at that point, they should be held liable, and maybe the NFLPA needs to go after them and sue them. And by the way, some notable names in this for sure were Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson. I mean, this was a thing. And don't forget that there's like another 590 plus players that are still unnamed in this. Nobody will say anything, whether it's the NFLPA, the NFL, the NFL Management Council. Everybody is keeping their mouth shut. They tried to keep this under wraps for a year. Specifically, it started really in 2022. So they've been trying to keep this under wraps for really 3 years. And then, of course, the other part of this is, while these other people are testifying, don't forget that Lamar Jackson represented himself when he did his deal with the Ravens. You want to talk about a mess. This is a nightmare, and it's not a good look for the NFL. And I guarantee you the reason why they try to keep this under wraps, and I'm not talking about how I feel about it, regardless of how you feel about it, it's the Colin Kaepernick situation about collusion, which the NFL just gave up on after they initially lost the case. Instead of going back and trying to do anything, they just said, forget about it, let's save face. And now I think they're trying to do the same thing again because the word was out, well, why would anybody want to hire a guy who's suing you? Well, basically enough guys to fill up 32 teams almost twice sued the NFL over this situation, over the guarantees. And this leads back to, regardless of what you think, at the bare minimum, this leads back to everything that I have talked about over the years. These players are financial investments and liabilities to these owners. These players represent money and management deficit when it comes to these league owners. Why do you think the NBA decided to change the term owner? Why do you think they got away from that? You look at what a lot of people have claimed about Jerry Jones, especially fans who look on the outside and go, bro, the term owner has a lot of negative connotations. And the NBA has been trying to get away from that, so they changed the language. Maybe the NFL should be encouraged to do the same thing. And here's another thing. This is what people do not understand, because they'll say, well, these guys are overpaid crybabies and all this is going on because they get so much money. And if they didn't ask for all this money anyways, then none of this would be a problem. You do understand that these athletes drive and keep entire communities going, right? Do you understand what is going to happen to Milwaukee if Giannis leaves? Look at what has been going on with the Kansas City area ever since Patrick Mahomes has been the quarterback. Success breeds money in a lot of different ways. The NFL has been reported by the Kansas City Chiefs that there's been $1 billion spending increase in that area. Specifically in downtown, where people have been looking at major property value down there. Real estate has become a huge thing in Kansas City and the surrounding area now. There's been reports and rumors about crime dramatically dropping in Independence, where the Chiefs play. And don't forget that the whole reason why there's leverage going on right now with the Chiefs and potentially going over to the Kansas side and being in the Legends is because of the financial benefits. And then you have to think about the guy who parks your ticket year round. Somebody in Milwaukee basically has work all year round thanks to the Brewers and the Bucks. Whatever their position is, they have work basically year round because these teams and these players exist. They drive up entire communities, and don't forget about all the things that players like Patrick Mahomes does in terms of starting up really amazing charity organizations and things like that they do to help out people in dire situations. Buffalo Wild Wings would not exist if it wasn't for sports. And imagine how many servers, cooks, managers, assistant managers, GMs, CEOs. Imagine what would happen to all these people if sports stopped tomorrow. Then you think about the local vendors and the local proprietors and the local people with all their money in their local bars and their local areas that are and venues that are actually inside of these stadiums. They rely on that. I guess it wasn't made clear enough when the pandemic happened in 2020 and there were no fans in the stadiums. And so these venues that were in the stadiums that relied on that for their money for the year couldn't operate. The guy punching your ticket, the guy parking your car. They thrive and drive entire communities. And so when a player goes, I want to hold out for more money, maybe you have an understanding as to why. Because if any of this is true, then this just continues to prove that the NFL does not give one red you-know-what about any of their athletes. It is strictly a bottom line scenario. Now, don't give it to the older guys. Give it to the younger guys. Sure, yeah, get a big rookie contract, just like what we saw with Travis Hunter. But a guy who's been around the league for a little while, don't worry about him. If you want to be mad about anything, be upset when a player like Dak Prescott, who hasn't won anything, gets the type of money that he got. All right, everybody, I am Drew Duncan. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. Tell your device to play the Drew Duncan Sports Show. And, of course, I am on YouTube and TikTok, the RL Drew Duncan, meaning the real Drew Duncan. Everybody stay safe, take care of yourselves, and have a wonderful rest of your night and or day.